In front of this couple's house, accidents kept happening on the sharp curve. On the very first night after moving in, a tire flew through their window, and that was only the beginning. Over the next few months, several people were killed in car crashes right outside their door. The most disturbing part was that, when George witnessed a young man die, what he felt wasn't fear, it was excitement. The next day, George walked to the curve and studied it carefully. He noticed the road sign was almost completely hidden by thick branches. Trying to make the place safer, he grabbed a chainsaw and trimmed the trees. But that night, another crash happened anyway. He rushed to the scene, urging the driver to hang on, but the man coughed up blood and died in front of him. George blamed himself for not being able to save him, but Sarah told him their son was traumatized, and this house just wasn't right for them anymore. She suspected the reason nobody else had bought the place was because it was too dangerous. George brushed off her concerns, but his behavior grew stranger and stranger. He started studying first aid, even signing up for emergency response classes. One night, Sarah noticed a bald patch on their son's head. A doctor later explained that the boy had started pulling out his own hair from living in constant fear and anxiety. Sarah immediately mentioned the endless crashes outside their house. She told George she wanted to sell the place and move, but George insisted their son should just stay home, saying he'd personally take care of him. Sarah reminded him that they still needed his income to cover expenses. The disagreement between them deepened. The next day at work, George was fired, but he couldn't bring himself to tell Sarah. That night, he dragged the trash bin out to the road and waited. He wanted another crash so he could prove his worth by saving someone, but nothing happened. The following day, George sat at his computer, binge-watching car crash videos. He was completely hooked. Sarah eventually listed the house for sale, but whenever potential buyers showed up while she was gone, George told them it wasn't for sale anymore. When Sarah found out, she was furious and threatened to leave with their son. George argued that buyers had the right to know the dangers of the house, but Sarah confronted him, saying she already knew he had been fired and that he'd kept it from her. She couldn't accept his lies, and she couldn't live in that house any longer. George watched helplessly as his wife and son walked out. That night, he turned off every light in the house, hoping to trigger an accident. When that didn't work, he sprayed water across the road with a hose and cut down the warning sign. Not long after, a car skidded and rolled over. Excited, George grabbed his first aid kit and ran outside. He pried open the door and dragged a woman out, but she wasn't breathing. For the first time, all the first aid skills he had practiced came into play. He worked frantically, and at first, nothing happened. Then, just as he was blaming himself again, the woman suddenly came back to life. George had finally saved someone, but by then, he had almost completely lost his mind.